Welcome back to Awareness, everyone. Today we are exploring the history of South Carolina's first black-owned bank. A little history lesson. It started and opened back in 1921 as Victory Savings Bank, and it was located in the center of Columbia's Black Business District on Washington Street. The bank was chartered by well-known black activists, President I.J. Joseph and Vice Presidents I.S. Levy and C.E. Stevenson. In 2019, the bank was renamed to Optus and moved locations to where it stands now on Main Street. Optus Bank is one of 18 black-owned banks in the entire country. Joining us today to talk more about the history of Optus is Bonita Left, the Executive Vice President and Chief Operations Officer of Optus Bank. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here because Optus Bank, I know people pass it all the time, and they really may not know the history inside of the walls of that bank. So, Bonita, obviously, I know you weren't around in 1921, but take us back to that time. And from being an employee with the bank, tell us what was the reasoning for those black activists, those prominent people in the black community to say, hey, we need a bank for our community.
Right. Well, 100 years ago, if you think about what was happening in our communities, in our country, in our state, we were desegregated. We were segregated, and businesses, people, consumers did not have access to capital. They didn't have access to banking in order to buy homes for their families or get working capital for their businesses. They just didn't have that. So we decided as Optus and our predecessors that we needed to do something about that. So these powerful men, business people, took it into their own hands to ensure that the businesses that existed on Washington Street had the access to capital and that we had control over our future and our destiny.
And it's really amazing like that, and you think about it. We're talking about 1921 and black people opened their own bank. But in the same sense, though, even though segregation was happening, Jim Crow laws, it was still a booming black business district at that time, which meant so much for the community.
Well, it did, because we supported our own. We supported the businesses. That's where we thought about shopping. We would go and support those black businesses who were a part of our community, the people that we lived in with our neighborhoods and all of that. We would support. We would support each other, and money is power, if you will, and where we spend our money is important, and we chose then to put our money into our communities and into our future.
And over 100 years later, Optus, formerly known as Victory, has continued to not only survive, but thrive. We're gonna go to break in a moment, but before we do, I want you to give us a little teaser on how the bank has been able to thrive for over a century.
I believe that we have held true to the mission and original vision of those three men that you mentioned. And it is very much to turn, our mission is to turn opportunity into wealth.
That is amazing. All right,
Yes.
We're going to pause right there. Our conversation will continue with Bonita Left about Optus Bank, the state's first black-owned bank, and how it's been able to thrive over 100 years later, and what they're doing now in the community to help communities of color. We'll be right back.